Let's shine by seeing the best in all of us and by looking out for each other. Let's stay healthy. Let's shine together.
Hi, I'm Sherry Harlan, program host for Let's Talk Together. And today we have as our special guest Kelley Cruse Nicholson. Welcome, Kelley.
Hi, thank you.
And Kelley is the Alzheimer's Association Executive Event Chair for for this area. And Kelley, tell us a little. Not everyone knows who you are, so tell us a little bit about your background.
So, for those people that don't know who I am, I have been involved with the Alzheimer's Association now for probably 6+ years. I think I said 6 before, but probably 6+ years. And I became involved with the Alzheimer's Association when my mother became diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I did not know anything. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to find things for her. So I was like, I'm going to make sure I know everything that's available that can help out with my mom. You know, when people hear Alzheimer's, the first thing they do is there's that fear that hits them. You know, what am I going to do? What do I expect? How is this going to impact our family? Always. And I had somebody ask me once, you know, I try to stay on top of being tested and things like that. And they said, but what are you actually going to do if you find out you do have Alzheimer's? What are you going to do? I don't know, right? Because when you get that information, the impact that it has on everyone is very difficult. But when my mom was diagnosed, I found, of course, that there were support groups that I could go to. I could go to the website. I could get information about Alzheimer's and different types of dementia. So many things that you have to learn. And I became my mother's caregiver. And she lived with my husband and I for a while prior to her going into the nursing home.
And let me stop you real quickly, just so that the Alzheimer's mission statement is the Alzheimer's Association mission is to end Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia.
That's right.
So because of that, our subset topic is better brain health.
That's
because
right.
we're dealing with the brain.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is, for me, I would love to see Alzheimer's eradicated in my lifetime. I think it's a horrible disease, and I don't want, you know, my nieces, my nephews, my grandchildren to have to go through that with, you know, any of the elders that are left in our family. So I do my best to educate people on better brain health, you know, support groups that are in the area, things that they can do to help out when your parent or your loved one starts to decline from Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. So I kind of took it on as my personal challenge where, I'm going to raise as much money as I can and I'm going to educate as many people as I can. A lot of people think about Alzheimer's when it comes time for the walk, which we'll be having our walk. We have our walk in September. And we're going to start signing up walk teams, and things like that. But I'm the type of person, I'm just like, Alzheimer's doesn't just exist in September. And so I try to keep it at the forefront of people's minds year round.
And one of the things is people, when they hear about, so many people are focused on health and wellness and being healthy.
Yes.
And we often forget about brain health.
We forget about our brains, right? And that's important. Right
It's a
now.
muscle.
It is. It's very much. It is. It's a muscle, and we need to train it just like we do everything else. As you're learning and growing up, you're learning things, and that's training your muscle. And it doesn't stop once you reach a certain age. And a lot of people will focus on, I need to stay mobile, so they'll go to the gym so they can still stay flexible. I'm going to eat right. Well, all of those things are great also for your brain. But some of the things that you can do for your brain to help kind of train your brain is I myself personally have a coloring app that's on my phone that I will use. I do a lot of word search puzzles. In fact, some people say I'm addicted to them. I love them. But it keeps my brain active, and I like to say that I'm always learning because it's important for me to keep my brain sharp. A lot of people ask me, how do you do everything that you do? And I said, I'm afraid if I stop, then I won't be able to do these things anymore. And it is a concern for me. When I had a father that had a dementia and my mother has Alzheimer's, Sherry, I've told you before, there's things that we need to do to keep ourselves healthy. And one of those things is keeping our brains healthy, eating the right type of foods. You don't want foods that have a lot of protein in them. You want to eat a lot of fresh foods, vegetables, things like that. And now, nowadays, it's very easy to run through a drive-through somewhere and be like, I just don't have time to do this tonight. I'm going to grab something and take it home. And a lot of people don't just sit down and cook anymore. Go out, buy the supplies you want, and cook. I've actually started doing that. So,
Okay.
We're working on it in our household.
And I know that what got you on this journey
Yes.
was with your mom. What were some of the first signs that you could see that something was different?
We chalk signs up to old age, but there's a difference between forgetting to do something and, not being able to calculate numbers, So there's a difference between brain age and Alzheimer's and said dementia. So with my mom, we saw some of the little things, she would always say, I joke about, she had cans of Coke. She loved to drink Coke. And we swear we're going to find them somewhere someday, But she would say, I know you drank my Coke. Who drank my Coke? Somebody took my Coke. And it's like she may have drank the last one, and we'd be like, But we did not think much about it until one night my mother got dressed to go visit a friend. And she had a group of ladies that she met with every month. She knew where every one of them lived. They were like sisters. And she was gone about 45 minutes. And when she came back, she was crying. And I went down and I asked her, I said, what's happening, And she said, I just couldn't find her house. It's fine. I just couldn't find her house. And that was tough. That was really tough because the next day, when I talked with my family members about it, I said, I think we potentially might have an issue. And for us, that was really like the big sign. But unfortunately, people don't see the big signs until sometimes it's too late once they start noticing the big signs. Yeah.
My grandmother had dementia.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see the different signs. For instance, at the time I was at IU, And she had dropped me off, and then she could turn back around and come back to Richmond.
Yeah.
But instead, she ended up in Louisville.
Right.
Because north-south,
Right.
65 is all the same.
Exactly.
In her mind, it was. So
Exactly.
that's when we had to stop letting her drop me off. And that was like some of the first things we started to notice.
Yes.
So it's the little things. And it's being family, you don't want to notice it.
You don't. And that's the big thing is we don't want to think that a loved one or a family member is suffering with, a cognitive decline.
Yeah.
We really don't want to think that. And when you look at the different stages that loved ones go through, they go through a stage where they're angry. Their personality changes. They're angry because you know what? They can't remember what they're doing. And the hardest thing is to not go, you remember that, because they don't. And all it does is frustrate them and get them aggravated because they really don't understand what's going on. My mom, she went through all of those stages. One of the beautiful things that I love about my mom right now is that my mom and I used to get in the car, and when she would get very anxious and want to go home, she always wanted to go to her grandfather's house, or my grandfather's house, her father. And once I would get her in the car, I would turn on Soul Town, right? And I would start singing. And she and I would sing together, and I'd get her something to eat. And by the time we drove around for about an hour to all the old places she used to go when she was young, she was calm enough to take her home.
Right.
Okay. I still do that with my mom when I go to visit her. The funny thing that I do is if she's anxious, because she does still get anxious, frustrated, and then we will sit and we will sing, and sometimes I hear other people that are there, other patients that are there, they'll start singing with us, and but that's the one thing I'll say, well, Mom, do you remember? We'll sing Bill Withers or Al Green or Aretha Franklin, one of her favorites, Gladys Knight and the Pips. We just sit and sing, and it always helps to calm her down. But finding that one common ground that you can use with your loved one, with your friends, whatever, is one thing that brought them joy, One thing that brought them joy is the one thing that you want to remember, and meet them where they are, because it's so difficult knowing that your loved ones don't know who you are.
Yeah, and that's real difficult.
That's very hard. And, some days I'm somebody my mom babysit for, some days she went to school with me, and I'll say, oh yeah, of course. And I meet her where she is.
That's the only. And also when you have to make yourself available to them, and meeting them is perfect.
Yes.
And on some of the steps to brain health, do you have a daily routine for brain health? Even have you started one?
I actually do. I actually have a daily routine, and it's funny because one of the things they talk about is getting appropriate sleep for brain health. I always used to laugh about my aunt who would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go down to get fully dressed, go to CVS, get her paper, have her coffee or coffee cake, everything. I have that routine myself now. It's like when I get up in the morning, I know what I'm going to do first thing. And I always take enough time to where I can, every morning, I take enough time to where I get dressed. I love my coffee in the morning, so, I make sure I have my coffee. But I will do a word puzzle or something like that in the morning before I ever do anything else, and then I get dressed and then I start my day. I think that it's important to keep at the front of your mind that you're training your brain, you're keeping your brain active. Because as we get older, I don't know about you, but my back and my ankles tell me all the time how old I am, right?
Tell me.
And sometimes I just don't feel like getting up and walking around, getting out to do something. Today's a gorgeous day. I want to get out and I want to walk. That's good. That's exercise for you. Staying social is another good one. Talking to people, making sure that you are talking with people and engaging in activities that bring you some type of joy, but also keep your brain active. And it's so important to start that routine for yourself.
I've had a question. This is actually a person asked me this question to ask you. And when we were talking about dementia, Alzheimer's versus just regular aging brain. What about when people repeat themselves a lot?
And I think that that can be a sign, simply them not remembering, what they've said before.
Okay.
Now, honestly, with an aging brain, someone who just like myself or like you, I forget stuff all the time, right? And there's a difference between forgetting something or getting lost in a conversation and go, oh, wait, I just already told you that, right? And opposed to repeating it as its truth. It's over and over and over again. And we get frustrated, when that starts because we want to say, you just told me that. Right. And they're like, no, I didn't, And so I think that that's something to look at. And as you start to talk with someone, or you yourself are not remembering parts of conversations and you're repeating them. And notice that people say to you, you just told me that. Yeah, you just told me that.
So I can't imagine how the individual feels because they know. I recently had some trauma, and I could not remember. I would know that your name began with a K, but I couldn't remember it was Kelley.
Right.
And then when the doctor would come in and ask me, I was so agitated because I didn't want him to ask me any more questions. So I'm putting myself in their shoes because that has to be so frustrating that.
And terrifying.
Yes. It's like, I know your name, but it's not coming to me right now. So just thinking they're doing that all the time.
Right.
And that's become their lifestyle. So that must be really frustrating.
I had, my cousin told me one time, he said, if you think that there's an issue, he said, and this was with my father, and he said, ask him to name 13 animals. And I said, name 13? He said, just ask him if he can name 13 animals and see how he does. And it was funny because I was like, one day I was like, driving Dad around. I was like, Dad, can you name 13 animals? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, so go. And he's like, you're just being silly. And I was like, no, really, just give me one, right? And he could not. And I was like, okay, all right. And then when I talked to my cousin, I was like, he couldn't. And he said, yeah. He said that is his brain not being able to bring up the resources and the knowledge that he has.
Yes.
And so he will pretend that he knows and he doesn't need to accept that information because he already knows.
Now, another thing, people living with memory changes from Alzheimer's and other dementia often find it hard to complete daily tasks.
Yes, very difficult. Things like getting dressed, getting up in the morning, getting dressed, remembering to brush your teeth. These are all things that are difficult. Shower, yes.
I think that the fear of falling
is huge.
Is really bad.
It's big. And, the thing is even the difficulty in changing their clothes.
Yeah.
They become used to, and we had talked about this before, there's one outfit, and that is the outfit they're going to wear. And no matter what you say, they're going to be in that outfit, right?
Right.
And so just noticing things that they do there, noticing daily tasks they can't complete, just as simple as doing dishes, cleaning their house, cleaning up after themselves, if they have a pet, not being able to remember to take that pet outside, things like that. These are all things that you can look for.
I had someone share with putting things in unusual places.
Oh, yeah.
So you would go to your dish, the dish cabinet, and it might be anything in the dish cabinet.
Absolutely.
But the dishes.
Absolutely.
That's because that's their spot. Why is a baseball in the dish cabinet?
How many times does a remote disappear?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, for us, for us it's kind of normal. And I've shared with you before that I try to stay on top of my brain health, but I still do goofy things. Just yesterday, I lost my phone. And I'm blaming the dog and everybody. Where's my phone at? And my phone was in my hand. So, there's things like that. And then I stop and go, okay, Kelley, what's happening? Right?
So because you have been a caregiver, often then that makes you so frightened.
Absolutely.
Then
Absolutely.
what's next?
Absolutely. The fear is real. You know, every time that we stop and we think about Alzheimer's or dementia and we stop and we go, I can't remember what day it is today. Is that age? Is that cognitive decline that's leading to Alzheimer's or dementia?
Now, one of the things that changes in personality.
Yes.
Can you share with us on that?
Yes. Well, my mama cussed, which was a big thing for my mom.
My grandmother became Sailor Bob.
Yes, yes. My mother would cuss, and we would laugh, you know, because I'm just like, come on now, Mom, you know. And she's like, I said it with my whole chest. That means I meant it. I'd be like, okay, all right, you know. But they do. Their personality changes, and they go through stages of personality changes. I think the one thing for me is my mom wanting to come home. You know, when her brain couldn't tell her legs that she could still walk. My mom thinks she still walks everywhere, but it's not transmitting to her legs, so she is in a wheelchair. But, you know, I think about those things and how hard it was in the beginning, but then they will pass through a point to where they don't remember that they can't remember.
Okay.
And it sounds horrible to say, but there is some peace in that, because the struggle with them not being able to remember, and the feelings that go along with that, and watching your loved one struggle to remember and knowing that they can't.
Does she remember her grandchildren?
She does, which is very funny, because I will bring up the grandkids' names. Mom, do you remember? Well, yes, I remember, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she even told one of my nieces one day, it was the most beautiful thing, and we went to visit her, and she told my niece, and she said, honey, you look just like somebody that I babysit for when they were little. And my niece said, Nanny, that was me, you know? And so she does remember that. Okay. But yet she doesn't remember who I am, because she'll tell me, you know, well, you say you're my Kelley, but my Kelley's a little girl, you know, because that's what she remembers me as. Yeah.
And that brings up a thing. So is that what often you see the Alzheimer dementia patients with dolls?
Sometimes you do, yes. And they're taking care of children. And when you go to a nursing facility in an Alzheimer's ward, you will see a lot of them have baby dolls with them, right? And they care for those baby dolls like they're their children, you know, which is always, it was always something that was strange to me. And then once I started learning more about the disease and about how things progress, I was just like, that makes so much sense. You know, it makes so much sense. I used to call my mom Mamacita Rosalita. And I would say that to her all the time, you know, and I walked in to see her one day and I said, Mamacita Rosalita. And she said, how do you know my daughter says that? And I was like, well, I just saw her. And she's like, you did? I said, yes. She said, well, she's busy all the time. I said, yeah, but I saw her and she said to tell you hello. So yeah, there's little things like that.
And with the dementia and Alzheimer's, often, what's some of the biggest difference between Alzheimer's versus dementia?
Okay, so Alzheimer's and dementia, Alzheimer's, can affect your language, your body movements. Okay, so those are two of the biggest things with those. Dementia they have what's called young onset dementia. And people are just like, oh, so you can get dementia when you're young. No, that's not what I'm saying. But a lot of people who are 65, which that's why I keep an eye on it. You know, I'm creeping right up there. But, you know, can have young onset dementia where they are diagnosed. There are other types of dementia, too, that have been miscued. There's vascular dementia. There is forefrontal, I can't pronounce it.
Lewy bodies.
Yes, that's right. The Lewy bodies was the big one, because I did not realize that having protein deposits settle on your nervous system could cause, you know, dementia and Alzheimer's. But the one thing I can say that there's a lot of medication, and we are working, and I say we because I am invested in this. We are working at finding medications that work. There are medications that they have now that can reduce symptoms, okay? They can even seem as if cognitively things are getting better. Unfortunately, with the disease, it will progress. And right now there is no cure, but we are working on it. We are truly working on it.
And with various research.
Various research, yes. Out there we have, I was invited to New Orleans to their national conference, and I was so amazed at some of the strides that they have made in Alzheimer's research and the medications that are coming out there that new every day still work. And it's so important. It's so important. When we think about this years ago, no one knew what Alzheimer's or dementia was. They did not know. And if someone was, had Alzheimer's or dementia, they could end up in a state hospital somewhere. People would say, oh, well, they're crazy. They've lost their mind, not realizing what it is, and it's not just cognitive decline. There's so much more that goes with it.
And as we're starting to wrap up, just wanted to say, we know that there's no cure, the symptoms, but what would you like people to know the most about either being, as you're a caregiver or for the patient for Alzheimer's dementia?
Okay, as a caregiver, there are things out there that can help you. Okay, there are support groups, which is huge, because one thing with caregivers is they feel like they're alone. And I know that because I was there. You have family to help, you have other loved ones to help. It doesn't matter. You feel like that you're in that fight by yourself. And so access those resources. Make sure that you take time for yourself. That's a big one, getting like caregivers to come in so that they can give you time to go to the grocery by yourself. Go take a shower, to not have to worry about things when you're not with your loved one. Don't argue with your loved one. Patients become, they don't understand, and they do forget, and it is so very frustrating for them. And meet them where they are. That is the biggest thing.
On that one, I'm going to have to thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
But meet them where they are is definitely
the
first step.
Yes, it is.
The first step. And we would like to thank Kelley Cruse Nicholson for joining us today on Better Brain Health and Alzheimer's and Dementia. Thanks for joining us.
Let's shine by seeing the best in all of us and by treating you here, right in your hometown. Let's look out for each other. Let's stay healthy. Let's shine together.